Hello and welcome. This is the Mojo Story, and I'm Barkha Dutt. When the air you breathe is quite literally killing you, and it never goes beyond an annual ritual of hand wringing and lamenting, and the same old cycle of blame and counter blame, does it need a citizens' revolution to actually stop what we're seeing in the national capital of India? Let's take a look at the pollution crisis in the capital. It is quite literally a chokehold instead of a capital city. Despite the involvement of the Supreme Court and literally people gasping for a breath, nothing seems to change year on year when it comes to the air pollution in Delhi. The Supreme Court says that the Delhi government has simply not done enough and is guilty of lame excuses and of passing the buck. In the meantime, a political debate continues over who or what is most responsible for the air pollution. Is it stubble burning? Is it vehicular pollution? Is it the construction activity? Or is it quite simply something else? Till that question is addressed, how do we even begin to solve this crisis where the new normal is even little children having to go on to nebulizers and breathing aids? What will it take for India and its capital to wake up to the fact that this is now a life and death situation? Let's introduce our panel of experts on the program today. We're joined from the Center for Science and Environment by Anumita Chowdhury, who has done a deep dive into what and who is responsible for this crisis of air pollution. Dr. Rajesh Chawla, we're grateful to him for taking time off from his patients. Even before this program started, I could hear him advising somebody to get onto the nebulizer. As someone who uses one myself, I know exactly how that feels. We're joined also by environmental activist Bhavreen Kandhari. She has long been working with civil society groups to try and push governments on policies and intervention. And from the Aam Aadmi Party, we're joined by its leader, Reena Gupta. Dr. Chawla, I'll start with you. Let me ask you, how is this year compared to previous years? Is it much worse? What are you finding among your patients? What are the kind of symptoms they're showing? Is there something that's changing year on year?
I think I'll begin from the end line, because it is changing from year to year. The level of pollution has been rising. When it used to AQI was 400, we used to be scared. Now they're 500, 600, and 700 in some areas. So naturally it is worsening. The problem is the acute effects are not seen in most of the healthy individuals, but it is over the years they will develop some kind of problem. Majorly the people who are suffering from the respiratory diseases, their symptoms are more, their cough is not responding, the amount of medication they require have increased, and there is a 20% increase in the OPD patients who are getting some sort of acute attack or exacerbation of symptoms. And we see every year, but this time definitely it is little more than the usual, and it is a continuum. First we had COVID, then dengue, and then now pollution. So Delhi has been suffering not only from this, continuously from various diseases, and we are not doing preventing like your first line ritual. It
Yeah.
has really become a ritual. I also talk to the media during this season, and everybody forgets about it
Yeah.
afterward.
But people don't even seem to understand that lifespans are actually reducing. This is not कि 3 महीने आपको खांसी आई, आपको asthma हो गया and everything is back to normal, Dr. Chawla. What is the actual impact on lifespans?
It is if you are a sick person, naturally your lifespan does decrease. You can change it by taking care properly of that disease if it is a treatable disease. Lifespan, definitely there are studies to show that lifespans of people who are staying in a polluted area is decreasing, is definitely less. There are people will say it decreases by 2 years, 3 years, but actually unless you do a longitudinal studies and compare with the others, you really can't say, but definitely it has an impact on the longevity of a person. Person staying here and a person staying in a clean environment, it is obvious it is going to be different because it is not something which is anyway helpful to a person. It is always harmful because it has gases, it has solid particles, PM 2.5. PM 2.5 has been shown even to cause the strokes, the decrease in the insulin secretion has effect on the liver, and in addition to the respiratory and cardiac. So definitely the decreases the chances of survival in, or the longevity in these patients.
And I think that's such an important point, that what's happening is not really only about respiratory disorders. It is impacting our health in many other ways. It is impacting body organs, different body organs, and we haven't even fully understood the consequences of what's happening. Now, Reena, let me get you here. You've seen what the Supreme Court has said about the Delhi government's response. There seems to be a passing of the buck here. Why are they, for example, just to start with, no restrictions on vehicular movement? There used to be this token odd and even day. Now you all don't even try that. What's actually going on here? What is the Aam Aadmi Party government thinking? Reena, you're on mute.
Pollution.
Yeah, go ahead.
Uh, Barkha, we debate this every year. Pollution is a problem of the whole of North India, Barkha, and we've been saying this over and over again that it's a regional issue, and unless we have all the regional governments under the leadership of the central government, we will not be able to solve this issue. Delhi is a small city state, and Delhi is doing everything that it can, but unless you have the similar actions taken in the NCR cities, there is very little impact that we're going to see in the air of Delhi. So just to give you an example, we've stopped construction in Delhi, which has impacted the economic activities in Delhi. There is such high unemployment, and a lot of people are dependent on construction. But unless you have a ban on construction in the NCR cities, what impact will the Delhi stop construction have? And this is exactly what we said at the Supreme Court also, that we are ready to do all the emergency actions, including stopping of vehicular movement, but we requested that similar actions be taken in the NCR states. And again, you see, Barkha, time and again, from August itself, we have been writing to the central government that it's going to be winter soon, and we will again be facing the same issue. Please call a meeting of all the neighboring states, the chief ministers, the environment ministers. Till today, we are yet to see even a statement from the central environment minister or the prime minister on the issue of pollution. This is an issue of Indo-Gangetic plains. 20 crore people at
So,
least are
so
impacted with pollution.
I'm not saying, and Anumita will break down for us what the key causes are. I'm not saying that it is one city or one state's problem. I'm simply asking you, schools are shut, right? You have told the court that you will have a lockdown if necessary. Why are cars still on the road? Why are we not, why are we not relying only on public transport at this moment? Simple question.
The odd even implementation is on the table. It is being discussed, but as I said, that unless you have odd even in the neighboring states, there's only very little difference that odd even in Delhi will have. So what's the point of doing it unless you have everybody else in the neighboring states doing it? Barkha, I was in Muradabad last week, which is in Uttar Pradesh. My parents live there. The AQI there was worse than Delhi. Out of the 22 most polluted cities in the world, 14 are in Uttar Pradesh. Have you seen the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh make one statement on the air pollution issue? So as a country, we need to decide, what are we doing? What is the paradigm of development? Do we want to continue to allow polluting industries, polluting power plants, all of those to function in the country? If that is going to be the case, then one city state like Delhi will not be able to do much.
So I think we have to separate our responses from short-term immediate emergency measures and from long-term structural changes of development. And right now, what this country needs and what the capital needs is short-term emergency measures. And I'm not even sure we're seeing all of that. Anumita, I'm going to ask you to break down for us. One of the most political conversation remains what or who is most responsible for the pollution in Delhi. Can you start with just that? Remove the politics, remove the Aam Aadmi Party versus BJP conversation, and just tell us how does it break down? What is the biggest culprit?
Absolutely, Barkha. So, what we have done very recently. So, today the science is available in this city where Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, they every hour continuously they put out data to show how relative contribution of different pollution sources are changing by the hour. Now, in that, they account for pollution coming from biomass burning, pollution coming from 19 districts of NCR into Delhi, and also Delhi's own local pollution, where they have tracked 8 pollution sources inside the city. And if you look overall, then what you find that NCR's contribution during this period of 24th October to 8th of November that we have tracked for the early winter has been substantial, even more than 50%. And to that is added stubble burning. On an average, it has been about 14%, but it varies widely daily. It can be even 4% one day, 2% one day, and then it can be even 30%. But we were also very curious to know that if we exclude what is coming from outside, what is Delhi's own problem is, then what we found that if we take only the 8 sources of Delhi, then vehicles dominate. It's about half of the pollution of the local sources,
So
followed by
hang on, hang on, hang on. You're saying that stubble burning is, of course, a source from outside Delhi. But if you were to look at what's causing the most pollution within Delhi, it is vehicles.
yes. And therefore, so nearly 50% is vehicles, and then much lower, it's then at the residential where the people are burning chula, industrial pollution, construction, and waste burning. These are predominantly what is happening right now in Delhi. And but this also tells us, Barkha, one very important message that we get, that this relative change in the ranking of pollution sources in Delhi is also a result of what Delhi has done, because Delhi has shut down all coal power plants. It's all its legal industries on natural gas. Its public transport, local commercial transport is on CNG. There is a BS6 emission standards, and we are also phasing out. And Delhi has also introduced the clean fuel policy. Technically, coal cannot be burnt in Delhi. Now, when you have these changes happening, then while coal power plant fraction has gone now from Delhi, so now it is the vehicle share is increasing and the numbers are exploding. Imagine a city with 1.3 crore vehicles, right? And the dependence on personal vehicles are increasing continuously because there's a huge deficit in public transport infrastructure and services. And that's so some of the key gaps, therefore, currently in Delhi are public transport and
So
walking.
hypothetically, before I go to Bhavreen, if let's say, just like we've closed schools, if for 20 days we were to say no private vehicles are allowed on the roads of Delhi, it's a lockdown situation. We did it in COVID. We're doing it through this time. Would it significantly alter the quality of air?
No. And that is something people really need to understand about the winter pollution. In winter pollution, what happens when you have very cool and calm weather conditions and there is no wind? And right now, last week, the wind literally disappeared from the city. In that kind of a situation, when the pollution gets loaded onto the atmosphere, it gets trapped. And when it is trapped and nothing can blow it away, all that you can do with an emergency measure is not to add more fuel to the fire and not allow the situation to worsen. It's not a magic bullet. It does not allow you to.
So what's the one thing, I do want to go to Bhavreen, but what's the one thing you'd ask the Aam Aadmi Party government to do immediately? Anumita, what's the one thing you'd ask the Aam Aadmi Party government to do immediately?
So they really need to announce all the emergency measure together. But as I said, that is only to not to allow the situation to worsen. So we need it as a preemptive measure. But it still doesn't mean that the pollution is going to get fixed overnight. For that, you really need to fix your system.
Okay. So, we're looking at different things here, but structural changes is the long-term measure. I'm still worried looking at these images of emergency measures. Bhavreen, you have been fighting this battle now for years. Do you find anyone is willing to listen more, or is life just cheap in our country? Bhavreen, you're on mute.
So sorry.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Well, it's it's so sad that everybody agrees. Like here, I know even Reena. I mean, everybody's so well-meaning, but what happens really in these offices of these politicians is just unbelievable. Because everything, one that we're calling these measures, we should call emergency reactions, and the measures are what you do actually throughout the year. So what we did throughout the year was absolutely nuisance, whether it was smog towers or it was smog guns, or even now again something today that they're the best thing that anyone thought was they're buying equipment, for the sweeping, mechanical sweeping. I mean, these are just, I think it's more about, when people also love something that they see. So like you're showing these pictures, people get impressed, and it's more to talk about. It's like a PR activity. But what really needs throughout the year, as far as we understand, because we are right here, one, the most important part of, right now, the savior for us is the trees. And no one is talking about that. You have no idea that every single tree cutting permission was given. This is when we are living in the most polluted capital of the world, and they are the only saviors. Rest everything we are buying, equipment, solar energy, everything is going to come. This is something that exists, and we should have had an embargo and said no tree felling until we come to an AQI 60. There are 15,000 trees being cut for Metro Phase 4. So yeah, and other, the Vista, and various other projects. So that, those these are really strict. I mean, that was a very bold statement by Mr. Gopal Rai when he banned crackers. But something like this needs to happen for tree felling as well. But then it needs to be implemented.
So I want to ask you what you would like to see immediately happening, and then I want to take the same question to Dr. Chawla. The point is that we have lived now through 2 COVID years, right? We know the harm that a lockdown actually does to the economy and to the poorest Indian citizen. So it is only people of relative privilege like us who can actually suggest a lockdown. But at the same time, when poor people suffer from respiratory disorders, they also suffer in a different way. They also suffer in a more acute way, right? Reena, do you have your hand up to say something? Reena? Yeah, go ahead, and then Dr. Chawla. Yeah.
Just I'm on mute again. Just a quick comment on Anumita's slides. From the slides, it's very clear that Delhi's own contribution is only 30 to 35%. And the larger contribution is actually coming from the NCR areas. And Barkha, I keep going back to, we need to learn how China has done this. Beijing was facing similar issues a decade ago. They created a regional body. Whatever steps the regional body decided, no matter how harsh those measures were, everybody fell into line. So, and we've seen very clearly that CAQMS created by the central government has been totally useless. They have not even managed what EPCA used to do. So, in fact, I would say that EPCA was much more effective than what CAQMS has done in the past 1 year. We need to have a regional authority. That regional authority needs to set timelines, milestones, and so that we don't allow this year after year that Delhi is blaming Haryana, Haryana is blaming Punjab, and all of us are blaming each other, and the residents are suffering. Why are we allowing this to happen year after year? Can we set ourselves some targets and timelines, and everybody agrees to do that? Who can do that? It's only the central government who can take leadership. And we have seen that in the Supreme Court, the central government is lying. In one affidavit, they say 34% parali burning. Next day, they put an affidavit 10% parali burning. And I don't want to blame the farmers. Farmers don't have a solution. Why are we not offering them a solution? Year after year, we discuss the same issues. So it's really high time that the central government takes leadership, brings everybody on the table, and sets us some timelines and targets so that next year.
Are you willing to take cars off the road through this month of December? Are you willing to?
Absolutely, Barkha. Absolutely.
Not odd even.
Absolutely.
Just take them off the road
Yes.
and just
Yes.
take them off the road for now.
Yes.
I mean, I agree with
If
Anumita that it's.
everybody, Barkha, if NCR agrees to do that, if the central government takes leadership and says that all the NCR cities, let us all do this together, Barkha. Why are we allowing, Delhi's airshed is at least 200 to 300 kilometer radius. Any action in that airshed impacts the air quality.
Okay, Dr. Chawla, you have been studying people coming into you with pulmonary disease forever. What is your estimation? What is the biggest problem? What is the biggest problem? We saw through COVID this very privileged elite talk that we can see the color of the sky, the air is cleaner. Obviously, there is a wake-up call somewhere here, but are lockdowns the answer?
This is again a knee-jerk reaction. Like lockdown, it's not going to help. I was hearing the environmentalist. She was just saying that don't cut the trees. But if it is for a public transport, please do cut them and plant more, because public transport, if it is made stronger in the city, that can really solve the problem. People are buying, I've been going on this media when the vehicle number was 20 lakhs. And similarly, over the years, it has grown. Last 20 years, again, I'm talking, you'll be surprised. For last 20 years, I've been talking on this. And they have grown to 1 crore. So we need to make a plan. I think they need to have the in the center, because without center this cannot be solved. Delhi is a mere little drop, because it is now, Delhi is not small. Gurgaon, Faridabad, Ghaziabad, everything together. We have to take action together. They need to, although they are making all efforts to make it stronger, they need to make even stronger. And even for people who are going by cars, they can go by this, so that some substantial level of decrease in pollution will occur.
Why do you think among the patients you see, Dr. Chawla, because we also have to talk about the behavior of citizens. You see patients every day. Do you think they are willing to give up cars and take public transport, even while they're coughing through it, on nebulizer 4 times a day? Are they willing to make a lifestyle change?
It is very difficult, frankly speaking, because when they are suffering, they are ready to do everything.
Yeah.
When they are all right, then they will be. I can ask you also. When you're all right, you think I'm
Yeah.
okay. I can do everything.
Yeah,
So
it's human
that,
nature. It's
it
human
has to
nature.
be, it has to be coordinated efforts at every level, at individual level. Every citizen has to think that I am contributing, because you see, the government cannot do beyond a certain limits. They can make laws, they can do a lockdown. Every individual participates, then only there
But
will
Dr.
be.
Chawla, I want to ask all of you, what is the one emergency measure you think the Aam Aadmi Party government needs to take immediately, or the
You know,
center? It doesn't
I
matter to me
think
which government. What's
there are two, three things which are, one is that, of course, the lockdown does make a difference when the AQI is very high, like, the sea areas, there when the torpedo or something like that occurs, everyone knows, and there is a lockdown.
Yeah.
So now the AQI should be standard, and there should be lockdown, because this problem will occur year after year, because this is because of the environment. The movement of the wind in this time is less, stubble burning is there, and all this adds on to the
yeah.
pollution. So government need to sit, make some rules, as well as do
So
a
we
coordinated measures. Alone, Delhi cannot do, as Reena was saying. It is not possible. All together, maybe Prime Minister has to, because if he can do for COVID, he can do for this also. That kind of an effort is required.
I think that's a very
Otherwise,
important
a lot of
point, that it
patients will
needs,
come up.
it needs that multi-state response, as we saw in COVID, with the Prime Minister personally chairing those meetings and driving that response. Bhavreen, you were wanting to come in, and then Anumita. Bhavreen?
Yeah, so Barkha, that's what I wanted to add, that this strict implementation of what we have, forget when they make new policies and new laws, but right now the strict implementation of what we have, whether it is waste management or whether it is cracker ban, or it's the thermal power plants, the violations, the emissions have to be controlled. I mean, there's just so much. But the same court who is today extremely angry about this, they are the ones who are giving extensions to all the polluters. So everyone will need to put everything behind and think about our children who are going to live 10 years less life. As parents, I think that nothing should be more important. We are all parents or grandparents here. So
Absolutely.
we
Yeah.
cannot
Yeah. Anumita, if you said that, there has to be a response through the year, and then there has to be an emergency response, and Bhavreen also made that point. What is the immediately, most urgently, that needs to be done?
So you're talking about the emergency measure, right? And in that, I'll say that it is really about being between the devil and the deep sea. And for the reason I'll tell you, that when you're talking about lockdown, yes, because we have already seen what hard lockdown can do to the nature. We have seen how saw the blue sky when we have gone through that hard lockdown time. But the city or the country, I don't think, has the appetite for another lockdown right now, especially the poor people who are going to be hugely devastated by this. And we have to ensure that there is a safety net for them if you ever really think about going for a hard lockdown during this phase. And the other problem is that whatever emergency measures that are already listed in the Graded Response Action Plan, their impact and their scope of application is also very limited because you cannot implement that in full scope because the systems are not in place. So if you want to do odd and even, then you don't have public transport. If you want to shut down diesel generator sets, especially in NCR, there is no electricity. If you want to stop burning, then the municipal services and the systems to collect and segregate waste is so poor that they cannot even collect. So the point is that even for the emergency action to be successful, and you have seen, like even in the past when we have done odd and even, we have given so many exemptions because the public transport cannot carry that additional demand that is going to create. So emergency action, even for that, you need the system change right now. So what I will say that do what you can now. If lockdown is needed for a few days, if it becomes so bad to clean up, do that with a safety net. But right now, come up with a strategy that what are you going to do for the rest of the year in each sector. And I must tell you, for each sector, the mapping is needed just not of what only the state government can do, but also the central government. Today, there are 11 power plants in the NCR that do not meet the emission standards. The industrial estates in the NCR using coal, and they can't switch to natural gas because central government loads taxes on natural gas, making cleaner fuel more expensive than dirty fuel. So many responses are needed immediately from everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Reena, quick last word to you. What's the one thing you need from the center, according to you, immediately that would help strengthen the Delhi government's fight?
Barkha, I think what we need is a strong regional body with teeth. Penalize the states which are not taking action. Like Anumita just said about clean fuel and power plants. Delhi shut down its power plants. Delhi moved the industry to clean fuel. As a result of that, we've actually lost our revenues in Delhi. Registering a new diesel vehicle is more expensive. So people register their vehicles in Gurgaon and in Noida. We lose on all the revenue, but what happens? Those vehicles then fly into Delhi. So the pollution doesn't change, but you've lost the revenue. So unless you actually have a strong central body with some teeth that can penalize the states which are not taking action, but I'm very sorry to say next year also we'll be having the same debate.
I mean, I think that's what really makes me cynical, that I have personally lost count of how many years every winter I have presented and hosted a program like this with almost all of you on that program. It feels like the worst sort of deja vu. We have lived through lockdowns. We have just emerged or are emerging from the pandemic shadows, and we are in a full-blown public health crisis. And yet we refuse as a people to see it as a public health crisis. And I don't know what it would take. If this is not bad enough, I don't know what more needs to worsen. We leave it there. Reena, Anumita, Bhavreen, Dr. Chawla, thank you. And I hope, as Bhavreen said, just the thought, if not your own lifespan reducing, that of your children, that of your elderly parents, if that doesn't get under your skin and you don't ask your governments for urgent action, but also change the culture of how we live, then I don't know what we will. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Thank you.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.